The dojo was packed. Rows of folding chairs filled with parents, students, and local spectators all gathered for the community demo. The mats gleamed under the overhead lights. Key eyes echoed off the walls. Tom Cruise stood quietly at the back, leaning against the wooden wall. He wore a plain oversized gray t-shirt, relaxed cargo pants, and old sneakers. Unassuming, just another face in the crowd, or so it seemed. Then came the voice. "Oi, is that who I think it is?" All heads turned as Sensei Riku Watanabe strutted to the center of the mat, smug, chiseled, radiating arrogance. Mid-30s, his GI sleeves rolled tight to show off a snake tattoo spiraling around his forearm. "Ladies and gentlemen," Riku called out, loud and theatrical. "Looks like Hollywood sent us a stuntman today. Mr. Mission Impossible himself." The crowd chuckled. Phones lifted. Cameras rolled. Riku grinned wider. Tom remained still. "You here for lessons, mate?" Riku jeered. "Or just lost on the way to a movie set?" Laughter rippled again. A few younger students giggled nervously, glancing between Riku and Tom. Tom didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Riku wasn't finished. He pointed toward him. "Come on, show us what 20 years of pretending looks like." He mimicked a wild roundhouse, mocking Hollywood flair. Tom pushed off the wall with one hand, calm, steady. He walked toward the mat without a word, slowly pulling off his jacket. He dropped it on a bench, then looked Riku dead in the eye. "You sure?" Tom said quietly, voice low and razor-sharp. "You want to see that?" The dojo fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. The stuntman had just turned into something else entirely. The dojo sat tucked between a ramen shop and a bookstore in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles. A tight space with faded red bricks and a glowing paper lantern that read Watanabe Dojo. Inside, the energy was thick. The mats were scuffed from years of hard training. Posters of flying kicks and tournament trophies lined the walls. It was the kind of place that loved attention, especially from the live streams and clips posted after every demo. Sensei Riku Watanabe stood at the center of it all. Part fighter, part influencer. Early 30s, 4th-degree black belt in karate. Hair slicked back, muscles tensed like springs under his GI. A man addicted to applause. He thrived on humiliation, especially when outsiders walked in. 2 weeks ago, he went viral for publicly embarrassing a visiting Taekwondo champion, sweeping his leg and slapping him on the mat while the cameras rolled. The video hit 3 million views in 48 hours. Since then, he'd become bolder, more reckless, convinced no one could outshine him in his own dojo. He especially hated celebrity fighters. To him, movie stars were clowns with choreographers, not warriors. And now, standing in his dojo, was Tom Cruise. But Tom hadn't come for glory. He was in town after wrapping a low-profile indie project nearby. His close friend, a former stuntman, had a son training here, and Tom had promised to come watch the kid perform. He slipped in quietly, wearing a loose dark hoodie over a plain t-shirt, cargo pants, and worn-out sneakers. No entourage, no cameras, just another face near the back wall. Except Riku spotted him, and his ego couldn't resist. What no one knew, not the crowd, not even Riku, was that Tom had once trained in Japan under Master Hiroshi, the very man who had mentored Riku years ago. Tom had trained before the fame, before the lights. His roots ran deeper than most realized, but he said nothing. He simply watched until Riku called him out, until the ego stormed the floor and invited a storm in return. Tom's hoodie came off, and everything was about to change. Riku's grin widened as he stepped to the center mat, rolling his shoulders with theatrical arrogance. The spotlight was supposed to be on him, and now it felt like Tom's quiet presence had stolen it without trying. Riku would fix that. He launched into a dramatic kata, his GI whipping with every exaggerated movement. He struck the air with sharp, unnecessary flair, stomping louder than needed. His shouts echoed across the walls like a showman craving validation. Then he pivoted, pointed straight at Tom, and barked loud enough for the entire dojo to hear. "What's the matter, Hollywood? You forget your stunt team today, or are you just afraid to break a nail in a real dojo?" Laughter rippled through the room. A row of teenage students near the back nudged each other, snickering. One pulled out his phone and whispered to the girl beside him, "He's gonna make Tom Cruise beg for mercy. Watch this." Another voice chimed in, "Bet he folds faster than a script rewrite." The phones were out now. Angles, TikToks, Instagram stories. The dojo had become a coliseum. And the man at the center, the quiet one in cargo pants and sneakers, had still not moved. Tom finally exhaled. No smile, no reaction, just a pause. "I didn't come here to fight." That alone made the room pause. "I came to watch a kid train." "Your student." He nodded subtly toward the corner where a small boy with wide eyes and nervous hands stood half behind his father, Tom's old stunt colleague. The child looked overwhelmed, embarrassed. Tom looked back at Riku. "But you're pushing this." His tone was steady now, quiet but cutting. "And you're forcing me to show you something your old sensei never managed to teach." That was the crack. Riku's bravado twitched. He stepped forward, arms out wide in mock invitation, and shouted, "Fine, spar me. Let's see what 2 decades of movie fighting looks like when the cameras stop rolling." A few in the crowd gasped. Even some black belts lining the side shuffled uncomfortably. They knew Tom's background. They'd heard the stories. Not all were fiction. Tom slowly removed his hoodie, folded it with care, and set it beside the mat. His shirt underneath clung to a physique built on pain, sweat, and discipline, not glamour. Riku strutted in a circle. No flips, no poses, no edits, just man-to-man. Tom raised one hand, index finger extended calmly. "One rule." Riku blinked. "What?" "No showing off. Just technique." For a beat, the room went still. Then Riku barked a laugh. "Then you're already finished." The mat had barely settled from the sound of feet when Riku Watanabe exploded forward. He launched himself into the air with a flying knee aimed straight at Tom Cruise's ribs. Fast, aggressive, flashy. The crowd gasped, phones locked in shaky hands, capturing every angle. But Tom barely moved. He shifted his weight, pivoted on one foot, and let the knee sail past him with surgical ease. Then, with a calm, almost lazy motion, he drove a short body shot into Riku's ribs. Thump. The kind of punch you didn't hear with your ears but felt in your bones. Riku crumpled slightly, gasping as the wind exited his body in one involuntary grunt. The dojo went silent for a breath. Then, phones lifted higher. Teens with oversized confidence suddenly leaned forward. "No way." Riku's smile was gone. His stance shifted now, wide, grounded, angrier. He wiped his mouth and laughed, but it was thin, nervous. "Lucky shot," he muttered, circling. Tom stood square, elbows tight, hands loose. He hadn't said a word. Riku stepped in again, this time faking a roundhouse and spinning into a heel kick. Tom leaned back, inches to spare, then trapped the ankle midair and swept the grounded leg. Crack. Riku hit the mat flat on his back. Tom didn't follow up. He waited. Riku scrambled up, red-faced. "Try that again, Grandpa," he barked. Tom exhaled once, calm, almost bored. Riku surged in, hands swinging wild, a flurry of hooks, a clumsy elbow, a back fist trying to catch anything. Tom was a ghost. He sidestepped, rolled his shoulder under, caught a wrist, twisted. Snap! Riku screamed as Tom forced him into a lock, spun him halfway around, and tapped a palm strike gently but firmly into his throat, controlled, surgical, a whisper of real damage. Riku stumbled back, coughing, pawing at his neck. The crowd had changed. No longer laughing, no longer cheering for Riku. Now they watched Tom, wide-eyed, holding their breath, wondering if this was still a demo or something else. Tom advanced now, slowly, chin down, feet whispering across the floor. Riku backed up, panic showing in his movements. Desperation overtook technique. He tried another spin kick. Too slow. Tom ducked it and rammed his shoulder into Riku's gut, lifting and dumping him to the mat again. No pause. Tom flowed directly into top control, sliding into a mounted position. He didn't punch. He didn't elbow. He waited. "Stand up," Tom said quietly, first word since the jacket. Riku looked dazed, embarrassed, but pride or stupidity made him roll to his knees and rise. Tom let him, but as soon as Riku raised his fists, Tom moved like lightning. A low inside leg kick chopped into Riku's thigh. His balance buckled. A second kick, same spot, he groaned. Then Tom danced to his side. And with one smooth, brutal combo, elbow to temple, wrist trap, downward pressure, he folded Riku forward onto his knees. Then, silence falling, Tom stepped behind, wrapped his arm under Riku's shoulder, and slammed a sharp elbow into the base of his neck. Controlled but deadly. Riku's body dropped like someone unplugged it. He hit the mat face down, wheezing. Blood from his nose already spreading into the fibers of the dojo floor. Tom took a single step back. No words, no flex, no celebration. Phones were still filming, but the hands behind them were shaking now. Someone whispered, "He just dismantled him." A kid in the corner gasped, "I thought Riku was the best." Riku rolled onto his side, coughing, eyes wide, dazed. He tried to sit up but failed. He reached out weakly to the crowd, to the mat, to anything that would restore his dignity, but there was nothing left. Tom, breathing steady, looked down once, then turned away. The silence in the dojo was thick as cement. Everyone was still, uncertain whether to clap, speak, or just keep recording. A girl near the back, the one who'd been smirking during Riku's taunts, slowly lowered her phone and whispered, "He's not an actor. He's a weapon." Tom didn't acknowledge her. He picked up his jacket, and the moment he stepped off the mat, the entire room exhaled. For a long moment after the final elbow landed, the dojo stood in absolute silence. Riku lay flat on the mat, face flushed, breathing shallow. Blood still dripped slowly from his nose, pooling beneath his cheekbone. His pride hadn't just taken a hit, it had been dismantled. Then came the sound of a single clap. Then two, hesitant, awkward, and then a smattering of applause rippled through the room. Not the thunderous ovation you might hear in a stadium, but the kind of slow, cautious approval people offer when their worldview has just shifted. A teenage boy in a white belt leaned toward his friend and whispered, stunned, "That wasn't movie fighting." Another voice behind him replied softly, "No, that was real." Tom Cruise stood still in the center of the mat, calm as ever. He looked down at Riku, not with arrogance, not with revenge, but with quiet clarity. Then, in front of everyone, he extended a hand. Riku, blinking through the fog, hesitated. Then, with a small grunt of pain and a bruised ego heavier than any injury, he accepted it. Tom helped him to his feet. No show, no drama, just a steady pull and quiet dignity. Once Riku was upright, Tom leaned in slightly and spoke only loud enough for the front row to hear. "Next time," he said, his tone firm but even, "try showing respect before chasing attention." Riku nodded once. No words, not even a thank you, just shame burning behind swollen eyes. Tom let go of his wrist and turned away. But as he did, his gaze landed on a boy near the corner of the mat. Maybe 12 years old, brown belt, standing nervously at attention. The boy had flinched during the fight. Everyone had seen it. Tom walked over to him. The boy straightened, nervous. He glanced down, unsure of what to expect. Tom reached over, picked up a clean towel from a bench, and handed it to him. "You've got better footwork than your teacher," he said, nodding to Riku without looking back. The boy's eyes lit up, wide, unbelieving. His father in the bleachers stood speechless, hand over his mouth. Someone near him whispered, "That kid's never gonna forget this." Tom ruffled the boy's hair gently, then turned back toward the exit. Behind him, Riku stood unsteady, hands on his hips, eyes locked on the floor. His black belt, still tight around his waist, suddenly looked like a costume. He didn't speak. He didn't argue. He just watched quietly as Tom walked away through the parted crowd, shoes echoing softly across the dojo floor. No high fives, no gloating, no slow-motion victory stare, just silence and awe. Phones were still recording, but now it was reverence. One girl whispered to her friend, "That wasn't for the camera. He really lives that stuff." Another murmured, "That's not a celebrity. That's a real martial artist." As Tom reached the edge of the mat, the dojo's sliding glass door creaked open. Sunlight poured in, catching on dust in the air like tiny golden motes. Tom stepped into the light. Outside, cars drove past. Life went on, but inside, something had changed. Riku sat down on the edge of the mat, elbows on his knees, staring at the same floor where he once strutted. He could still feel the weight of Tom's elbow on his spine, but deeper than that, he felt the weight of something heavier, humility. For the first time in years. By the time Tom's boots touched the parking lot pavement outside the dojo, the videos had already hit TikTok, and they were everywhere. Within hours, the title that took over every feed read, "Tom Cruise silences arrogant dojo master in 3 minutes." It spread like wildfire. By sunset, the video had already hit 3 million views. By the next morning, 12 million and climbing. Clips came from every angle. One from the left corner of the mat caught the elbow. Another from the back wall captured the one-liner, "Show respect before chasing attention." Every platform lit up, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, Twitter threads, even LinkedIn posts. Comment sections turned into digital temples. That wasn't acting. That was an education. Tom Cruise just rewrote the definition of quiet dominance. He walked in, got insulted, and left with everyone's respect. Coldest thing I've ever seen. No flash, no ego, just mastery. I'd pay for a full course called Discipline by Tom. Martial artists around the world chimed in. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts reposted it with captions like, "This is why belts mean nothing without control." Riku got humbled, and he needed it. Even verified UFC fighters dropped comments, "That elbow at the end? Yeah, that'll do it." Tom's timing is terrifying. Podcasts debated it. Reaction channels broke it down frame by frame. Fitness influencers went from mocking celebrity fighters to praising Tom's mechanics. A side-by-side breakdown even popped up on ESPN's Instagram, comparing Tom's form to actual octagon champions, and he held up. Meanwhile, Riku tried damage control. He uploaded a dimly lit, shaky video titled, "My Side of What Happened with Tom Cruise." In it, he wore sunglasses indoors and opened with, "It was a misunderstanding, and I didn't know he was that trained." The internet wasn't having it. Top comment, "You didn't lose to Tom's name. You lost to his silence." Another, "This isn't about a misunderstanding. This is about humility, and you're still learning it." Riku's apology trended for all the wrong reasons. Tom never posted a thing. He just walked away, and the world followed him. Across martial arts forums, the clip was pinned to the top under a single quote: "Martial arts isn't about being the loudest. It's about being the last man standing with his dignity intact." The phrase caught fire, printed on shirts, used in class warm-ups, adopted by instructors worldwide. At Riku's own dojo, something quietly changed. The Showcase Fridays, once flashy, ego-driven sparring sessions, were renamed. Now they called them silent discipline. No screaming, no taunting, just movement, focus, and control. Students who had once mimicked Riku's arrogance were now quoting Tom's posture. Even the youngest students started asking, "Can I fight like that?" One day, Tom had already moved on. Later that week, walking alone through an empty downtown alley, his phone buzzed. A text from an old friend in London. "Mate, saw the video. Another fight?" Tom chuckled to himself as he slipped the phone back into his pocket. "Not a fight," he muttered aloud with a small smile. "Just a reminder." And with that, he faded into the night. No spotlight, no audience, no words, just the kind of silence that echoes louder than anything else ever could. The kind of silence that teaches.